We toured southern Namibia, mostly visiting NWR, Namibia Wildlife Resorts, campsites in our off-road caravan. Come along for the ride. When driving around in Namibia, you are treated to really stunning landscapes, making the journey every bit as enjoyable as the destinations. Because the aim of this camping trip was to avoid people and have a relaxing time, we concentrated on visiting lesser-known locations. With the holiday season upon us, it meant a large part of the Namibian population were headed down to the coastal regions to cool off. Unfortunately, the Omicron variant was causing a spike in Namibian cases, and it was hitching a ride. After Mongolia, Namibia is the least populated country in the world. The northern part of Namibia is much more densely populated than the south, and the population concentrates in cities. In order to keep away from people as much as possible, we decided on the south of the country and camp far away from cities. There are a great many options for camping in Namibia, but for this trip we thought it would be fun to see what the Namibia Wildlife Resorts camps look like. A route was laid out for 8 days of camping, 2,200 kilometers of driving, and 6 campsites to compare. It did not quite work out that way, but we will get to that later. Because we camp with an off-road caravan, we can camp pretty much anywhere. The first destination for camping was Gross Barmen, which has natural hot springs as its main attraction. Arriving early in the afternoon, the first order of business was check-in. No reservations were made at any of the campsites on this tour to keep some level of suspense going.
Good. Are you guys very busy? No, we don't have. We want to go camping, yes? Do we pay here or at reception?
You can pay at reception, you cannot pay here.
Come on, we just pay you half.
Signage to the campsites were nice and clear, and we located the campsites with no trouble at all. Campsites are awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. After picking a suitable spot, the camp was set up for the night. Namibia Wildlife Resorts had a bit of a reputation of their facilities being run down. They recently renovated all of the facilities at all their campsites, which are dotted around the country. This is what the facilities typically look like now. The walls are newly tiled and each facility is kept very clean and stocked with the essentials. As the day drew to a close, the barbecue stand provided with the campsite was used to make some supper. The beautiful fading light provided a lovely show of colors in the sky. The smoke from a field fire we passed on the way added some more colors to the sky. Early the next morning, we explored the surroundings a bit more. Each campsite has a man-made shade and a pole which provides light, water, and an electrical outlet. There is also an area provided for bonfires. All in all, not a bad place to camp, if a little basic. The campsites were spaced well apart and not fully occupied while we were camping. Even though it was not on the brochure, there is a path leading into the veld from the campsite. It's interesting to see how close the previously mentioned field fire had gotten to the campsites. Luckily, long before we arrived. A stroll along this path provided some beautiful morning colors and even some wildlife sightings. With the sun up, it is time to take a look at the resort and show you what that looks like. The local wildlife keeps the lawns trimmed and looks good while doing it. This early in the morning the pools are deserted. In the midday heat, that is another story. The natural hot springs also heat an indoor swimming pool. The heated pool costs an extra $100 Namibian per person camping, but it is included for free if you stay in the bungalows. The restaurant looks to be nice, with spectacular views of the pools and lake. Since we brought our own food, we did not have anything from the restaurant, and so cannot comment on the quality of the food. We did have a couple of drinks though, and the staff were really friendly. Before long, it was time to pack up and hit the road to the next campsite on the tour. The landscape was green and mountainous past Windhoek all the way down to Rehoboth, after which it gave way to grassy plains. The country surrounding Marienthal and the Hardap Dam is a wide open country, and it feels like you can see forever. Arriving at the Namibia Wildlife Resort at the Hardap Dam feels a bit otherworldly, almost like being taken back in time a few decades. A restaurant and swimming pool are nestled on the side of a cliff for an awesome view, but since we were staying away from people as much as possible, this went unused. There is an open-air cinema on the way to the campsites. This was such a blast from the past that we had to go take a few pictures of it. The campsites themselves have a very strange layout, with a central food preparation area for all the campsites. Some campsites had a tree for shade, while others were completely barren rocky ground. There were no other campers, so we could enjoy the colors of sunset in peace. The ablutions were updated, clean and tidy, and the showers warm. Before the sun was up, some exploring was in order. A pathway runs along the top of the cliff with some amazing views. The play park near our campsite was a little overgrown with vegetation and had a decidedly rural feel to it. It even came with a scary slide. When the nice light is gone, it is time to move on to the next camp. There are no NWR camps near Keetmanshoop, and while it is possible to reach Luderitz via the gravel road from Marienthal, there is a special place near Keetmanshoop that we wanted to see. If you are ever in the neighborhood, the extra 100 kilometers is well worth it. Not to mention the fact that almost all the road is blacktop. It is a typical long, straight and boring Namibian road. So we had to stop at one of the many rest points and take a break. The special places are called the Quiver Tree Forest and the Giant's Playground, and both are located on a privately run farm. There is a swimming pool and restaurant at reception, but we headed straight for the campsites. With plenty of shade, good clean ablutions and running water and a barbecue, staying here is a feast. Quiver trees are alien looking, and a bunch of them makes the landscape otherworldly. The early morning light and some dramatic clouds shows off the giant's playground to maximum effect. Cutting across from the playground to the coast is a blacktop road that crosses the canyon of the Fish River, providing some spectacular views before the landscape turns into a whole different kind of barren and beautiful. Luderitz is a sleepy fishing town with a rich history, surrounded by diamond fields and nature parks, both off limits for most people. There is quite a lot to see and do in Luderitz, so we camped for 2 nights. NWR has some campsites on Shark Island with gorgeous views of the bay and town. Our campsite was properly sheltered against the regular strong southwesterly wind with a built-in kitchen. On the first evening, some chilling around the campsite was in order, taking in the stunning scenery. The other campsites at Shark Island vary quite a bit, from the unprotected ones on the top with a great view to the clustered campsites on the windward side. The ocean air has long since destroyed the power points, but each camp has running water and the ablutions were absolutely perfect. When in Luderitz, you have to visit the place where Bartholomew Diaz was the first European to set foot. On Diaz Point, there is a lighthouse to help ships navigate, as well as some abandoned houses from long ago. There is also a campsite and a coffee shop. The campsites here are very interesting. You can stay in these beached boats with a very nautical themed view. The Diaz monument itself is on top of a rock at the point where you can watch the power of the ocean as it crashes against the rocks. Kohlmannskuppe and the German architecture of Luderitz are also big drawing points at Luderitz. The next stop on our planned tour was Duwisib Castle. We lost a tire on the way, and because no reservations were made, we only found out about it being closed when we got there. On the NWR website, it does say that it is closed too, so we pushed on to the Namib-Naukluft campsites for 2 nights stay. Again, we were impressed by the cleanliness and function of the ablutions. As you can see, there's plenty of shade. Each camp has a barbecue area and running water. The water here is very tasty and perfectly safe to drink. The campsites were raked clean each day and kept in an incredibly good condition.
En daar is ons familie in kampie en dan in die downloader en so.
As the light exploded across the landscape, we hiked up to the rock pools. It only takes an hour or so to get there. As desert-dwelling Namibians, we are not used to this much greenery and running water.
It's the underground one.
Voor die camera wees, né?
Ja, nou, ik kan bij die afkomen.
Miskien nie. Ja, ek gaan die vinnige kanaal, wag. En maak eers 'n U-turn. En amper. Yeah.
All too soon, the last camp of the tour was over, and we had to leave it behind.
Daar moes rad 2 beter dan rad 6.
Want jou het meer krag. Liewe af net 'n bietjie.
Môre.
Môre.
Ons het baie lekker gekamp, dankie. Ja, nee.
Ons wil nie teruggaan nie, ons wil nie bly.
Julle. Maar hulle kampplekke het nou nie meer 'n weer nie. Sorry.
Ooh. Jeez.
So neem jy vorentoe, neem die valke af terwyl jy langs die kar.
Hallo.
Hy het voor die kar gaan.
Ja, is nie nou. Okay, wil jy reverse?
Nee.
If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching the whole thing. Please leave a comment